Stranger.
Hello and a very warm welcome to my little corner of the photography show slash video show. And that was a little taster of some of the work that my company Sennheiser Mke has produced over the past year or so. So I just thought it was a nice little bit of music to start us off. I've got a whole ton of stuff to get through today. I've got a lot of buttons in front of me, so I'm going to crack on. Today's little tour, we're going to be going into what I've called Big Up Your Rig, which is mainly about, apologies for my croaky throat, getting on and building up your mobile filmmaking skills, and also some of the kit you'll need to get it hunky-dory and a bit more sassy than perhaps it might have been before. So let's crack straight on, and before I do, I will show you a lot of my lovely clients there. And yeah, that's not much I can say about that, but I can pop myself into the corner there so you can see me and I can talk to you. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to look at, well, first of all, there's a photo of me taking a selfie when I was about 10 or 11, I think, and what a luscious head of hair I had. And it wasn't my bedroom, just in case you're wondering. So the first thing we're going to look at is why bother with a phone? Why don't we just use a normal camera? And also how important size is in terms of, you know, what you're going to build up and what you're going to add or take away from your kit at any time. Some setup and basics to get you up and working at a decent level on your phone, and what apps to look at too. And we'll quickly do a little demo. God willing that all the buttons work, we'll show you some demo. And also, of course, additional kit to make your life easier and help you get some more exciting, sassy shots. And we can't, of course, forget how to get better sound. And we're also going to look at some shooting techniques as well. So a lot to get through. We're going to just crack on and see what happens. And the first thing, of course, that I always I got lots of little sayings, and this is one of my favourite ones, in that someone with a more expensive kit can still do it badly. So you don't have to worry all the time about having the latest, the greatest, because it doesn't necessarily make you a better filmmaker, and that's important. Let's crack on, and apologies for it being a bit iPhone centric. I don't own an Android, I don't really get on with them, but a lot of these settings will work cross-platform, so there's no problem there. Let's look at getting your phone set up. The first stage, a lot of people may have done this already, but I will just run through this very quickly. When you go into your video settings, I would always choose 4K, because that is going to give you, it's going to future-proof. It's going to also give you a bit more image to play with if you're going to edit. Frames FPS is frames per second, so the higher the frames per second, the more video is shot. So if you shoot 4K at 60 frames a second, it will give you a nice slow motion if you were to slow it down to the sort of more regular 30 frames a second. So you're basically you're filming at twice the frame rate, and then if you play it back at the normal frame rate, it's going to be a really nice and smooth slow motion, and that will come into play when we start putting it on gimbals and stuff, which we'll talk about later. A lot of people talk about cinematic frame rates, and for cinema frame rates, 24 frames per second is what the cinema recognised standard, and that will give you that lovely motion blur, providing you have the camera set up, which we'll talk about that a little later. And as I just said, 60 frames per second is smoother. Especially when you're playing it back at 30 frames a second, you're getting twice as many shots, so you can kill half of them off, and therefore the shot's going to be a lot smoother, which is great when you're on gimbals and stuff. And when we're actually shooting, even on basic apps, you don't actually need to worry too much about having an expensive or even an additional camera app, because most camera apps will have these basic features. And certainly on iPhones, when you go into the video mode, if you tap and hold the screen, it will lock the exposure, so that when you are moving your camera around, you might find that sometimes it goes brighter or darker depending on where you are. But if you tap and hold the screen, it will lock the exposure. And then the little slider down the side there will actually increase or decrease the brightness, so you can set it as you want, and then when you're filming it, it won't wander around. And of course you tap the screen to focus, and then when I get rid of me, you hold you hold until that AEAF lock appears. So that would mean auto exposure is locked and auto focus is locked, so the focus won't drift excuse me, and nor will the exposure. And then of course you are able to tweak it with the little slider down the side as normal. Now, what we're going to try now is a little demo here. So if I'm going to try and call up my phone here, which is going to be interesting. So I'm going to cut to my phone, and we're going to cut to it. Then get back to me, there we go, 24 frames a second, then you would want to have double the shutter speed. So 24 frames per second, shoot at least 50, 1/50, and if you're shooting at 60 frames a second, shoot at 1/120, and that will give you that nice sort of cinematic blur. However, you know, most people just kind of shoot a bit of video, which is also fine, of course. Now, the other app that I want to show you is, let's see where we go with this. they tend to use a higher rate of recording than your inbuilt phone app, which is brilliant, of course. So you're getting a higher quality and the phone isn't sort of throttling it down. So there's two apps there that I would recommend. Now, what have we got here? So we've got the demo, and then yeah, so there we go. And here are the details for you to see. There's Filmic, shootmavis.com, there we go, and filmicpro.com. They are available for a small fee. Both do very similar things. Filmic Pro is the one that gets all the press. But I would maybe suggest looking into other ones because, you know, it may or may not suit your requirements. Okay, now a new development has come about since the advent of phones that have multiple cameras built in, such as this iPhone 11 Pro that I've got here. Now, the guys at Filmic have created an app called Double Take. And it's a very, very clever app. And what it does, it basically looks at all the cameras in your phone and puts them into one screen. So you can basically do a multi-camera shoot. Now, if I try and change to that, let's see if we can go to that now. And there it is. So that is a very handy app to use if you're wanting to record multiple shots all at the same time. And you can either even record side by side, so you could be talking to the camera and you could be seeing your view as where you're going as well. The next thing, we're flying through this, we're going to look at is steady on, is what I've called it. And there are things that you really need to understand when you go out and doing any sort of mobile shoot. And there's not much to think about really generally, but the main key sort of things from here are you really should also always be thinking about supporting the camera somehow. And I have got here various supports which I'll show you in a second. I've got one here which is a little iPhone stand which we can put full screen, you see. So the phone clips in here, it can rotate. It's very clever because it's got a Alka Swiss tripod plate underneath it, and it's a stand thus, and you can hold it like that, or you can of course hold it like that. So it's pretty, or you can use it as a desk stand, of course, to watch movies. It's very, very clever. It's a small rig phone mount, but any sort of other phone mount will also do. So we need to support it, and we need to light it, because smartphones, for all they're great, they're not always so brilliant in low light. And of course, we need to be able to hear it. And of course, we're going to look at some sound. So actually, if we cut now, I'm going to try and cut to the overhead camera shot here. And let's see if you can see. So we've got, this is basically my mobile filming kit here. So we've got a gimbal, we've got some lights, we've got a bit of audio kit, and we've got some sort of holders for the phone. So here's the support. We're going to now look at gimbals, and I'm going to lift that up and we'll crack on with this. So we look at gimbals. Everyone's heard of them. They are freely available and very cost effective. And they are superb for, well, not for that, for putting a camera in and steadying it. So I've got my phone here. I'm going to clip it in. It's going to be a bit kludgy because I'm trying to do a million things. And there we go. It kind of sits in the phone like that. Most people would have seen these already. This is a Dji Osmo. A very fun way. It's very inexpensive, a couple of £100 at max. Very easy to balance. If you got to get it right. There we go. There we go. And I'm not turned it on, but that's essentially it. And the great thing about it is it all kind of folds down, so you can kind of just put it in your bag like that. So you've got your whole smartphone rig, and that's the Dji Osmo 3. They've just brought out an Osmo 4 which has got some magnetic mounts on, etc, etc. But this basically is a stabilizer which you've obviously seen around. There's a motor here, and there's a motor here, and a motor here, so it's 3-axis, and they basically spin really, really fast and stabilize the shots, so they counteract any movement that you put into it. It's a bit of an art form to get to know how to use them, and people expect to be able to pulling off great cinematic shots instantly. There's an art form to walking with it, but again, it's best to try and keep it quite simple. Now, we're going to move on and talk a little about some audio kit. The basic sort of sound kit that I would use is a top mic, and I have that here, and I'll show you in a second. So looking at different types of microphones very quickly, we've got the standard top mic, which you can obviously stick onto your iPhone smartphone cage, which I will demonstrate shortly. They are much better than the built-in mic of the phone, obviously, because it's an external mic. Excuse me. They're not so great in noisy locations unless your excuse me, your subject is very close, and also you need to mount these somehow, and then you have to say, therefore you have to put your phone into some sort of cage or a frame to do it. The next level from that would be a radio mic, and again they would plug into the phone, but you do need to mount them. They're great for interviews, and you can obviously stand away from the source of the sound. The negative side is that they are omnidirectional, which means they will pick in and pick up noise from all around the microphone, not just in front of it. So it's not too great in a noisy location, and of course not so great for groups either. And then the third microphone, actually, which is little interesting, and one which I've used quite a lot, is something called a memory mic, and it's basically a self-contained recorder that hooks up to an app on your phone. So it's obviously very portable, it's self-contained, it's very simple to use. But the idea with the memory mic, I'll show you in a second, is that you can clip it to anywhere and they can walk off and it just records into it. It's obviously limited control in the actual app itself, but it's best held close to the source as well. Now here is the said memory mic. You can see it's very dinky. You turn it on, it's rechargeable. The recording lasts about 4 hours, but you can clip it into, let's say, onto your subject, or even if you're doing a vlog, and you can kind of wear it like that or clip it out of sight. And once it's synchronized with your phone, it records. And as it's recording, it doesn't need to be connected. But the clever thing is, if you use the inbuilt app on your phone, then it will then synchronize. If you use the Sennheiser app, it will synchronize the audio from here with the audio you've recorded on the video. So you're getting the crystal clear audio from this microphone here into your phone. But you can also use it with any recorder, because it just records on, and you can pull the audio files off and bring them into your edit package, of course. So the next thing we're going to look at is adding some lenses to your kit. Now I have a bunch of lenses here. I'm going to hopefully I'll flick. Let's go. It performs a little bit nicer than the actual built-in lens. And with that, of course, I've got some, I was mentioning cages, and these all have screw fittings. So the lenses basically will screw into these holes. And the lenses they're from Sandmark, but you can, other lens manufacturers are available, and a lot of them have a standard thread. So this is an extra cage that I bought. And here is the new Sennheiser Mke 200. And what you can do is you've got hot shoes and stuff here, so you can mount the microphone to the cage, and you can then plug it in obviously to things. So there we go, you've now got your little portable rig, and the natty microphone comes with all the cables. So you use your microphone cable from your phone, the headphone adapter, plug this into your mic, and then you've got basically a really good directional little top mic there, which is great for vlogging if you flip it round. And then you've got obviously the camera. You can also mount the lights onto it and all sorts of stuff like that. And again, with that other thing I showed you, the little smartphone holder, you can of course clip the thing to it like that. So you've got the microphone on top of your smartphone mount there. So that also is going to work pretty well. And you can mount it on a tripod. And then just very quickly, we're going to look at, I've got a couple of lights here too. So these are Loom Cubes, and again, these are actually magnetic, the back of them, so you can pretty much stick them anywhere that's got a magnet on. There's a slightly bigger version, that was the Air. This is the regular Loom Cube, and you can sort of take off these magnetic attachments, and there's all sorts of colours and diffusers and all sorts of stuff you can get for them, and it all comes in a lovely box, and you can build up that kit quite nicely. So there's a lot there, and then of course there we go, the standard sort of very thin profile iPhone case, which snaps on, and you can screw the lenses into it that way. A lot of kit there. It seems a lot of kit, but actually it all goes into a tiny bag, which is brilliant because you're not hawking around a great deal of kit all the time with you. So that's the lenses. They are optional. We're going to crack on. But my sort of key takeaways from this sort of session would on storytelling using your phone is keep it simple, plan the story beforehand, and lead the viewer through your story. You are the guide, and also more importantly how your images are going to tell the story. So you keep it simple. The next thing to do is keep it steady. You can use a tripod, a small tabletop one, or you can use a little stand that I showed you, or of course the gimbal, and that gimbal does come with a little tripod to screw underneath it, which is great. And you know, don't try complex moves if you're just starting out, and try and remember to frame and focus nicely. So keep it simple, keep it steady, and keep it short. When you're coming to edit, you have to be prepared to cut stuff out. And from the viewer's perspective, of course, will it interest them? They won't know what you've cut out, and try and be brutal, because short and sweet is usually always better. So to sum up this little section, basically stop, think, shoot. The most important thing to do is actually clean the lens, believe it or not. I would also set the phone to flight mode to avoid getting text messages and whatnot popping up. Close all your background apps. Try not to shoot in portrait mode unless you're actually shooting for sort of Instagram video and all that kind of stuff. Avoid using the digital zoom. So what I showed you before was the digital, it's not an actual zoom. You can do that in edit. So try and avoid doing it in your camera if you can, because you're losing quality essentially. And also a nice little tip would be to get a spare USB battery pack, which will keep your phone powered, of course, throughout the day. As we've mentioned, good lighting always helps. Think about your shots, shoot a wide shot, then go for a close-up. You could use time-lapse to condense time. You can also consider using slow-mo, but don't overuse that for dramatic effect. And use the grid. If you have a grid pulled up on the phone, you can use that to frame, which is basically a 3x3 grid, which enables you to frame things on the intersection. In terms of frame rate, 24 frames is cinematic, but you might not like the blur it gives. And don't be afraid of using some manual settings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a little video that I made a little while ago. I'm going to play that now for you. So that's basically all shot on an iPhone with a gimbal and with those lenses that we spoke about. So very quickly, what we're going to do now is quickly break down those shots so you can get an idea of how we did it. So the first one we have was the chap walking along. This was a tracking shot on the gimbal, walking along the station. The passerby on the right there adds movement and it adds some interest. So let's have a look at that shot. There he goes. Lovely, lovely. Okay. So the next thing I want to pull out from that is what I would call a handheld slow tilt downwards. So this was with the wide angle lens on the iPhone to give us that beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower going along there, and then just a very slow tilt down with the camera down to the bottom there. So that's this shot. There you go. Very, very subtle movements there, but still quite lovely. And then we go, as I said, the fisheye is handheld with the fisheye. I was just moving on my feet, just panning like that. Fisheye used with caution, as I mentioned, but it can be quite nice and give some quite dramatic effects. Just be careful not to get your fingers in the shot because it will pick up lots around it. So this was this shot. And I was just turning around like that while it was going on. Now we're back on the gimbal again, so I was using it a bit like a slider effect, sort of moving very slowly on one plane horizontally. And as it happens, the bird flying past actually gives it a bit of depth too, so I will roll that clip. And you can see that as the bird flies past, it's just a very subtle movement, but it's better than being a static shot. And then we go out on the streets and we see here starting to build up a story. So it's a gimbal steadied shot, so I'm not hand-holding it, it's just a static shot. And then we start with the wide shot to establish the scene of the guy being drawn, and then it comes up with a close-up of the detail. So this is how we go for there. Then we get the close-up so we can see what the painting is. Now we go back inside into the train station. I like to use natural transitions between scenes, so the train will act like a natural transition from one to the other. So it's a handheld pan, so no gimbal, just holding it in my hand. The train is acting like a natural transition, so it goes across and then it cuts to the next scene. We pull out here, we're back on the gimbal again. I'm using the telephoto lens this time, shooting into sunlight, which is also quite cool. Everything was on manual settings so I could get the exposure right. And that's a nice little shot there with the sun rays coming in, a bit of lens flare too. And again, we use the same, shooting into the sun, but we've gone low down now. So it's a very low shot on the ground to exaggerate the hustle and bustle of the art gallery there. And we get the lovely lens flare coming up. Now this is quite interesting because what I've used here is a montage of shots, which is the idea is to bring the viewer into the crowd and then to make them think, what are they looking at? And then you followed by a reveal, so you see what they're looking at. So it's all about telling the story. So you see the shot here, they're looking, you're like, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? You pans round, and then you see the reveal. They're still looking, don't know. And then boom, there we go. There she is, the beautiful Mona Lisa. And we can use the idea of angles as well to create perspective and accentuate perspective. That's a big word. So this is a handheld shot, very low, looking up at the Arc de Triomphe. I think that's how you say it properly. Wide angle lens again to give it a really big sense of scale and get as much as in as possible, but also from very low down, so you get that beautiful in-depth, that beautiful sort of perspective of going up. And there we go. So that is pretty much all we've got time for today. I would like to sort of thank you all for joining us, or joining me for this little whiz-bang tour through mobile filmmaking and some accessories to get. There's the QR code to scan. I'm probably going to get a Lemsip. It's not Corona, it's just a croaky throat. Too much talking. If I remove myself from the picture there, I'm doing a little thing for Photo Show, a little coupon, 20% off all my online training courses. I have got lots of stuff to do with mobile filmmaking, mobile editing, mobile workflow, as well as regular video shooting and story construction and lenses and all. Basically, we can do a sort of bespoke course. But in the meantime, I do wish you a lovely photography virtual festival. Hopefully, God willing, we'll all be together at some point in the next 12 months and able to see you all as actual real people on an actual little stage. If you have any questions, scan my QR code, fire me some stuff on Twitter. I like a bit of a Twitter thing, Instagram, all those channels. I'm absolutely more than happy to answer any questions you've got or help you out. There's some kit lists as well up on my site, so all the stuff I've talked about should be up there. I can point you in the right direction, but go and enjoy the show. Listen to all those amazing speakers. There's the discount coupon code thing. You have been marvellous, even though I can't see you. Take care of each other, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon. All the best. Bye bye.